Inception is a film that's stuck with many fans since its release 10 years ago. The haunting final shot of the movie has had people debating back and forth over whether Cobb was dreaming or not, and it's become a massive talking point in the film theory community. However, there may be an even deeper element to the entire movie that many have missed, and throughout this video we're going to be breaking down all of the evidence that hints at Cobb being the job. There's several lines laced throughout the film that suggest his friends and family are trying to get him to let go of the idea of his late wife, which has held him back from being with his children. Now from here on out, it's heavy spoilers ahead, so if you've been living in a dream world and haven't had a chance to check out the movie, then I highly recommend that you check out now. If you're still here, huge thank you for clicking the video. I'm your host Definition. Now let's get into our Inception fan theory. So since its inception, Inception has inceptioned inceptions. What I mean by that is, the movie is a multi-layered mission into the mind of a man's subconsciousness based around the notion that an idea can be a dangerous thing. This is something I've experienced myself, and since rewatching the film for a big breakdown on the channel, the reality of what could be going on has been gnawing away at me every night. Now in the film we follow Cobb, an expert at stealing ideas, who's been apparently handpicked to break into a newly appointed CEO's mind in order to convince them to split their company apart. Cobb succeeds in doing so, and as a thank you, Saito, the owner of the aforementioned corporation's competitor, pulls some strings at the American border so that Cobb can pass through it and be reunited with his children. Cobb hasn't seen them for years, and as we learn, he's consumed by guilt and regret, believing that he caused his wife and their mother's death. In the film we discover that the two spent decades in their subconsciousness, and during this, Cobb planted the idea in her mind that their reality was wrong. This helped in getting her to wake up. However, this idea continued on far past the dream, and Mal, Cobb's wife, became obsessed with the notion that they were still in a dream world, and thus she committed suicide in order to wake up. Mal staged the scene to look like Cobb had been complicit in her death, and thus he fled the authorities. Cobb just can't get over her though, and throughout the movie she ruins his plans, shows up at the wrong moment, and almost traps him in the layers of his own subconsciousness. However, at the end of the movie, he finally lets her go and reunites with his family. It seems like he came to this decision on his own, but what if this itself was an inception? What if letting her go was the entire point of the film, and his friends staged the mission so that he believed he'd come up with the idea himself? Well, there are several clues that point towards this. Now, we learn that Inception has to pretty much be inspired. You can't just tell someone to have the idea to subscribe to your channel, as they'll be able to trace this back, and what you should do is provide content that makes them want to stick around. Now when we see the crew carrying out Inception in Fisher's mind, they do this by reinforcing the idea of his father so that when he reaches the final layer, it all comes together to plant one idea in his mind. Though Fisher believes he's decided to do this himself, he's actually been manipulated into it through the repetition of certain things. Now this is very similar to how the layers work with Cobb. Firstly is the big song that plays throughout the movie, Je ne regrette rien, ha ha ha. This French tune is dropped in at several points in order to signal to the team that a kick is about to happen and that they're running out of time. On the surface, it's a fun little song, but it actually holds a lot of meaning behind it. Now firstly, the song is about someone letting go of all the regrets that they have in their life. They're moving on to something else, and it being played to Cobb throughout the movie at several key points could be subliminally telling him that he needs to move on from Mal. I really can't think of any other real reason that this song was picked above any other songs, as all it does is provide a signal to the team. So they could have used this, or Never Gonna Give You Up by Rick Astley if they wanted to, but the fact that they stick with the French one shows its importance. Mal herself is French as well, so the idea of letting go of your regrets being sung in the same nationality that your regret centers around does hammer this home. We also see early on a picture by Francis Bacon, and this was actually one that the artist created after the death of his lover, and the warped face on it symbolises that he was unable to fully recreate his lost love in all their glory. This mirrors how the Mal that Cobb created in his mind is a mere shadow to the real one, and this painting could have been placed to subtly hint this idea to Cobb. Another big moment is a line that Miles says in the film, as when visiting, he says to Cobb, "Come back to reality." At the time, it's pretty much just a throwaway sentence, but it could be reinforcing this notion that Cobb needs to come back. We see a similar tactic used in the film at one point, when at the start of a dream it's hinted to Fisher that his father wanted him to be his own man. Similar to the Miles moment, this is a throwaway line, but it's dropped so that when Fisher gets deeper into the dream, it hammers it home in his head. Hell, even the scene of Cobb saying goodbye to his wife is similar to the one of Fisher saying goodbye to his father. Both of them must let go, and Fisher's father dies similar to how Mel does upon Cobb confronting her. In addition to this, the random numbers that Fisher gives as a safe code at one point in the film is actually reused at several points. It appears as the woman's phone number in the hotel, and also as the hotel rooms that the group stay in. The number is then used by Fisher himself as the safe code, and thus it was planted into his mind by his random outburst, which was later reinforced by the group. So we can see that one throwaway line uttered in a seemingly meaningless moment can be built upon the further into the dream you go. Cobb at one point is told that he's not one to judge people living in a dream world, and this too could further the point in his mind that he needs to wake up and let go of what's holding him back. Cobb does seem to exist in a reality that's very much like a dream, and he's chased by a strange agency which acts similar to how projections do in someone's subconscious. Now before I talk about these in more detail, I need to talk about Saito. Saito is arguably the person that actually adds to the theory of Cobb having to let go the most. Now firstly, the line, "Do you want to be an old man, filled with regret, waiting to die," is said 3 times throughout the movie. Similar to the 3-layer dream, this forces Cobb to question whether he wants to live the rest of his life filled with regret, alone and away from his family, or if he wants to go back to them. If he holds on to the idea of Mal, he definitely will end up like that, and he'll be forever fleeing from this strange agency. Now, we never learn who these are, but they could be working for Saito to convince him that he needs to find safety and to trust him. Saito even shows up to save him during this chase scene, which seems completely out the blue, yet the more we think about it, the more we know that Saito was watching him, as he would have to be stalking him in order to show up here. Saito also takes away one of Cobb's allies early on in the film, and though he seems like a threatening figure, if this theory is true, then Saito moving this man merely made him think that he should do the job with him. I think the old man filled with regret line is very similar to the line about coming back to reality, and at the end of the movie, in which Cobb comes face to face with Saito, this could be a revelation of that. Here he sits opposite an old, lonely man, and Cobb literally sees his own fate laid out for him, reminding him of what to do. Now this happens after his conversation with Mal, but it's still needed in order for him to fully wake up. Cobb really has 2 choices, and he could either remain in the dream world or take a leap of faith like they agree to in order to return to the real world. The escaping of the dream juxtaposes what Mal wanted, which was to pull him further into it. Now an interesting line in the final conversation that the two have is that Mal says, "You promised we'd grow old together," and Cobb says that the two actually did in their shared dream. This is one of his wedding promises to her, and it may also be the truth that Cobb once knew but had forgotten. We're also told in the film that a positive idea works better than a negative one, and this too may be the reason why Cobb shutting down Mal feels like such a win. Saito also touches Cobb's totem, which we learn pretty much invalidates it. Doing this could be Saito deliberately letting Cobb know that dreams don't matter anymore and that he should leave it behind. And lastly is the fact that Cobb gets through customs at all. I don't know if you've been to America, but not a nice time going through them customs. Now, if this guy was really wanted for murder, I'm not sure there's any strings that could be pulled in order to get him back into the country without being arrested. I actually believe that Cobb merely thought that he was wanted, and that the entire time he just told people he was so that he wouldn't have to face the truth. He had just built Mal up as an excuse, as he couldn't look his children in the eye because he knew that he'd caused the death of their mother. This is why he constantly looks away whenever the projections of them try and look at him, and he's been running because he just can't face up to the reality of the situation. He finally gets through customs, but nothing was really done, and in the country the police won't be looking for him, probably because they never were. So in conclusion, Cobb is told through music, his friends, family and peers to let go of Mal, aka his regrets, otherwise he'll be an old man waiting to die alone. On the job, he believes that he's the one who let go of Mal and returns to his family. However, when we look at it for what it really is, the true inception was putting the idea in his head that he should return to them, something that he could only do after leaving his regrets behind. And that's the video. Now, hopefully I did my own inception here and made you agree with me, but if you don't, or if you do, leave your comments below, as I'm sure there's a lot to talk about. If you want to watch a full breakdown on the film that points out all of the cool little Easter eggs and awesome things in it, then make sure you check it out after this. If you want to support the channel and get to see content early, then please consider clicking the join button below. You can also come chat to us on our Discord server, linked in the description, or at Heavy Spoilers on Twitter. Thanks for making it until the end of the video. You've been the best, I've been Definition, and I'll see you next time. Take care, peace.